It's the final day of my Titans Return marathon, and I cannot wait to review something from a different toy line. But until then, we have one last bit of unfinished business from Wave 1. It is the final Voyager, the Decepticon Voyager, Galvatron. Much anticipated, especially after the last time we got a Galvatron. He wasn't the best toy, so let's hope this one turned out a wee bit better. We start off in Jet Mode, which is something I tend to call Cybertron Megatron Jet Mode because it is rather inspired to be a jet, as it has a cockpit and a nose cone, and that's pretty much it as far as jets go. Yeah, it is very much a spaceship design. It kind of has to be. There's really no avoiding this here. So yeah, it is Galvatron in as close to a spaceship as you could get with his engineering, cast in a lot of gray plastic and a lot of purple plastic as you would expect, and of course the translucent orange for the cockpit and the gigantic cannon barrel hanging off of the front of the jet. It's more of an improvised design. I call it Cybertron Megatron because if you remember that air quote jet mode, it's really just like two pieces of his car mode folded back to kind of make wings, and he doesn't look anything like a jet other than he has a nose cone. This kind of falls in the same improvised category. It does decently enough, but you can also very much tell those are the legs, those are the feet, there's the arms sticking up. There's not a whole lot hidden about this mode, so the transformation comes off a little bit slipshod. Some of the design elements are nice, though. I do like the big orange canopy, and I do like the big Decepticon symbol on the nose cone. I also like these sections in the front that kind of have a look of intakes, typically where you would see it on a standard jet, maybe like one of the Seekers. But beyond that, he's pretty much exposing a lot of his robot mode bits, which are some of the usual Galvatron details that you would come to expect. It's one of those modes that takes a little bit of imagination to really appreciate. Now, you do have the option in this mode, of course, to open up the cockpit, and of course a Titan Master, in this case Galvatron's Titan Master, can ride along inside, and he's not wanting to get in, but hey, there we go. Fits comfortably. Nice view in there. Yeah, works well enough. I still love that little added bit of playability that these things have. In general, I found this last couple weeks, the Titans Return figures have a ton of little bits of playability and he's stuck in there now, okay. Lots of little bits of playability that really inspire you to use both modes instead of just keeping him in robot mode all the time. I will also point out, he does have the pegs along the back, so Titan Masters can ride. There's 4 pegs, so well, no, I guess you couldn't cram 2 on there, could you? So 2 can mount securely, or insecurely if you actually want to point forward, which, again, we're just kind of flying along. The placement of the pegs is just still hysterical to me. So before we get to the mode that everyone really wants, we will take a quick look at his Titan Master, Nucleon, the name being, but it's pretty obvious it's designed after Megatron, and I love that idea. You can see in the midsection there is some Megatron-style detailing, and that is definitely old Buckethead up top. I love that idea of having the original Megatron somewhere in the core of this figure. I always thought one of the coolest things would be to do Jetstorm and Tankor from Beast Machines, but their Titan Masters would turn into Silverbolt and Rhinox. Little cool touches like that. So this is kind of that idea given form. It's got the same articulation they always do, ball jointed neck, ball joints in the shoulders with limited outward motion, but plenty of back and forth, and the single hinge for the hips and knees as one conjoined piece. So that's pretty much all we can see of him for now, because that pretty much ends his interaction. We'll get this into the actual mode that Galvatron is known for. Speaking of which, little kickstand that's actually on the barrel itself. As far as I can tell, it's supposed to be like a landing strut, but there isn't anything else under here that kind of indicates landing strut. Nothing that folds out, and the instructions don't mention anything either. So it's kind of weird. He doesn't sit level even when it's down. It's kind of strange. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get this guy into a proper mode. I'm going to undo this in order to rotate everything here around, because this... Hang on. It's actually been a while since I transformed. I haven't transformed this guy since before Metrocon, so bear with me. So we're going to fold the cockpit down. This area is going to be left bare. It'll remain that where it is. These big sections are going to fold down, and we're going to hinge them outward so they have a little bit of added range. You know, this can fold up. Hang on, let's see. We got to get rid of these legs now, don't we? Okay, there's a double hinge in there that's quite tight, so it takes a little bit of muscle to get those where they need to be, and then everything clipped together. Holds a little bit slipshot on mine. Might have to play with the play with some of the internal hinging before you actually get too far in, but nothing too terrible. Nothing that can't be regularly undone. And from here, I'm going to fold this down, and that's going to create our cannon barrel. So we flip this down, and that will peg in right there. Fold those pieces back in. So yeah, I have taken a new policy here on Random Review. Instead of everyone correcting me about mistransformations, I'm just going to stop, check, double check, before I continue on and make an idiot of myself. So with those rotated down, which is a really tight thing the first time you do it, and this strut all connected here, there is a connection point down here, just so that all stays nice and firm. All that done, we have Galvatron. If I can, I'll go ahead and angle him because he's supposed to angle upward. In the very familiar cannon mode. We've been waiting for a Galvatron with his old school cannon mode for a long time, but you can never get kids to buy a toy cannon, which is why they pretty much advertise the jet mode, slipshod as it might be, as his main vehicle mode. And I can understand that from a marketing sense, especially because, you know, you still have to sell to kids even if it's a collector's design toy. That said, it's a necessary evil if it gets us the cannon mode again. And they didn't do too bad of a job. He very much matches the original G1 toy, the big gray box in the back and gigantic orange barrel up top. Now, of course, this does not match the animation model where he's got this big strut to hang out to the back and the legs just kind of vanish into his core body. But it is what it is. You know, there's only so much you can do on a limited budget when your toy has to be nationwide and easily handled by a child. But for what it is, I do dig it. I love that they incorporated it, and I do think, you know, it's what Galvatron needed. You know, it's something I was really missing from the old Universe Deluxe. But there's really not a whole lot to say about it in general because, well, it's a cannon mode. There's not a whole lot it does. Doesn't fire missiles. There's no electronics or anything. And we still only have the two little back pegs. This is where it kind of gets to me a little bit because I would expect maybe a couple extra pegs like right here so a Titan Master can ride to the front. But instead they're all back here and they kind of have to stand at a slant, which is a little bit strange, unfortunately. That's just kind of weird is all. Like, there's no cockpit or anything. It's one of the few times I've seen one of these where the Voyager didn't have. Like, even looking at, like, the future Wave 2 and beyond Voyagers, they all still have a cockpit in both modes for the Titan Master. Here, not so much, which is a little bit distracting. But hey, it's a Galvatron with a decent cannon mode. What more could I ask for? I could ask for a robot mode. So let's go ahead and get to that. I'm going to flip all of that back and get us ready for that. All right, now we can finally straighten out these legs completely. Get that double hinge up there. Click in for the knees. The front of the waist is here, so we're going to rotate that to the front. Flip the feet out, and once this is folded down, everything rotates to the front. We're going to focus on the back for a little bit as we fold these panels in. These panels that have been kind of just hanging below everything meant solely to cover up the gap in robot mode, which is nice. It keeps it from looking too hollow. It does help it look like a more solid toy. though they really don't contribute anything to the transformation other than I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's good. It's a good addition, but it's also a little bit odd. So rotate these pieces back up to the front. Like I said, the first time I unclicked these, they were very tight. It took a lot of force, but nothing broke. That's all good. The arms fold out like so, and the treads fold to the back of the arm. Simple enough. Very much like the original toy, though I think it's actually carried out a little bit easier than the original toy did. Ooh, hang on. Here, I remember this. Hang on. His wrists are detented, and my fingernails are not up for this. Figure I finally get a tight joint on these guys, and it's a transformation joint that shouldn't be tight. Okay, all that folded in. That all gets folded like so. Everything kind of pegs a little bit, so it all holds together. Shoulder guards down, and from here we need our Headmaster / Titan Master, which transforms by folding up. And just because it's going to be covered up for the rest of the review, we'll go ahead and take a look now. It is very much a Megatron-styled head, though it has a lot more crowning going on. It's kind of a mix between Megatron and Galvatron. If this was painted purple, it'd probably look much more like the Emperor of Destruction. It's an interesting little touch. So, once again, I'm going to have people debating me on how to actually plug these guys in. I prefer to do it the backwards way, the way the instructions don't want me to, because it seems to be a firmer connection on my part. And I've tried things the other ways, and they don't really fit any better. And with that done, we have to click open the chest, and when we do, the Galvatron mask flips forward and finds its place and makes the lighting very, very hard. But we're going to get into that here in a bit. For now, I will go ahead and attach the cannon, place him back on the review stage, and lo and behold, we have our Voyager class Galvatron. Fans have been wanting a Voyager class Galvatron for the longest time, especially after the Universe figure kind of tanked. And I don't mean that as a pun, I swear to God, I do not. But it was not a good toy, and it really didn't look much like Galvatron. So we've been needing this for quite a while. It's finally some respect for the mad king that this man is. Alright, so let's take a close look at that head and get this out of the way, just because I'm going to have to deal with the lights here in a minute. Immediately, we're going to notice a little bit of an issue with how this toy works. See, because the heads are a little bit small for a Voyager body, they have to come up with ways of compensating. Sentinel Prime, a week ago, dealt with that by actually having... God, now everything's washed out. I apologize. He dealt with that by having these little things that came up to the sides of the head and filled it out a little bit more. Galvatron handles it by having a mask fly up and connect to the front of the Titan Master. However, it's not a very close connection. It does leave the face looking very far back, very far away, and sunken in, which creates a lot of shadow over his face, which does not look good, and forces me to really screw with the lights in order to actually show you his head in there, because once I reposition them, it's all going to go into shadow, and he's going to look really weird for the rest of the review. But hey, for some reason they thought that was the best way of tackling it. I disagree. Doesn't quite work. So yeah, we can see he is very much the G1 Galvatron. He has got the pecs, he has got the silver and the purple in the right spots. He's got a lot more gunmetal gray exposed in this mode too, as well as some red in the correct positions. It looks very much the Galvatron a lot of fans have been waiting for a long, long time. A lot of this detail was visible in his various vehicle modes, but now it's kind of come together. This is one of those toys where you can tell this is very much designed to put the robot mode first. He does look spectacular. The molding is all correct, the paint's in the right spots, and unlike some of the deluxes, the paint is used everywhere where it really needs to be used. There really doesn't feel like there's any major detail missing here. It feels like Galvatron, and I think that is the biggest thing. Right down to like the backpack kibble. Yes, it's a big jet nose cone and cockpit, but The original G1 Megatron had or G1 Galvatron had a big stem of gray plastic on his back too, so this is not terribly far from the original. So that actually kind of works out. Something that is a little bit distracting is he does have sockets in the biceps for plugging on his signature fusion cannon, which does look really good. It's properly huge and definitely looks like it could do what Galvatron did in the show, wipe out a planet or two. Here, there's one thing that kind of bugs me. It's the fact that this does kind of get in the way of articulation while he is wearing it. The elbow is completely inaccessible. Though I will give them credit, the rear section is high up enough that it does not actually interfere with the shoulder guard. So he can actually raise it and look correct while aiming. And you don't really have to separate anything or move anything. That's good design work. It does rub a little bit, but nothing too terrible. But I know a lot were kind of hoping that you could plug it into the side. Of course, that's not proper for G1 Galvatron, but it'd make movement a little bit easier. You can hand mount it if you want, I guess, but it's an arm cannon. Why would you hand mount it? And it's just one little detraction from what is otherwise a great signature accessory. I like the silver and red on it too. So I'm going to keep that out of the way while we go through the articulation of the toy. The shoulders are universal and detented quite nicely, so they stick together very firmly. The elbows, good range. They do rotate all the way around, though your big treads on the back are going to get in the way of some positions. Double jointed elbow works out nicely. We have a waist joint. This all gets in the way, but it all folds and hinges off just in case you want it, so it's not too big of a deal. The little skirts on the sides fold up, so you have full range of thigh motion. All the hips work quite well. Thigh has full rotation, knees bend to the 90, and we have an ankle rotation, or an ankle tilt rather, both directions actually. So he can pose up quite nicely, and that's what I would want him to do. You will notice I kind of skipped one point of articulation, which would be the neck. Now, the actual system in here, the socket that connects the Titan Master is connected to the actual piece that flips the mask into position. And just before anyone asks, I will go ahead and correctly attach and then position and then show you. Yeah, the Titan Master doesn't form up any better on the head when it's correctly attached. So just in case you're wondering that, just in case, because I know someone will bring it up. But it's all connected on the same rotating point here, which supposedly is going to allow the head to rotate even when the mask is deployed. Problem is, it doesn't quite work. The Titan Master wants to go, the mask does not, and unfortunately, the way this works is when the head turns too far, the mask starts to fall away because the plastic of the hinge is hitting the plastic of the torso. Which means, yeah, the head rotation does not work on this toy. You can get a slight bit of look direction, but not enough to really call it a point of articulation. It really doesn't benefit the character at all, unfortunately, and detracts from what would otherwise be a good toy. Like, in general, that would be my biggest issue with the figure. So I will go ahead and give you the action pose to finish on. Come on, there we go. Wish I had a good Rodimus Prime at this size now. Just now he needs a counterpart. So that, my friends, is Titan's Return Galvatron. In looks, he is very much the original Galvatron made new. And just to stand there in a shelf with your 86 Autobots and Decepticons, he's going to look phenomenal. That said, okay, so it's a slipshot jet mode that doesn't hold together too great, but at least it's a little bit more playability. Cannon mode is great. Do like that. Most of my issues come from that flip-up mask. I think there should have been a much better way of figuring out how to make that work. And, and we've seen with Sentinel Prime's mold and the upcoming Alpha Trion, there are ways of bulking up that head without resorting to something like that. It might seem like a clever idea and it gives you a little bit of spring-loaded gimmick to it, but ultimately it's one of the big detractions to the figure. It just does not work. But if you can overlook that, or find a way around it. I'm sure people are doing third-party heads for these guys already. If you can live with it, I think this is going to be a good Galvatron for you.